and then we will get started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Come Boating Winter Adventure Series and tonight's presentation, an overview of the past, present, and future of Front Street Shipyard with its founder and president, J.B. Turner. I'm Brenda Harrington, program librarian at the Belfast Free Library, and I want to thank you all for joining us. We have been pleased to co-sponsor the Winter Adventure Series with Come Boating in 2022, as we always have. And this year, again, we were virtual, but next year, I'm really looking forward to being able to meet in person in our library's Abbott room. Fingers crossed. Tonight's program is being recorded and you will be able to view it on the Belfast Free Library's YouTube channel. During the presentation, we ask that you type your questions into the chat box for the Q&A after. And again, I'd like to remind everyone to please keep your mics muted. Next, I would like to turn the mic over to Come Boating board member Nicole Luttrell for updates, and then she will turn the mic over to Carol Kuhn to introduce our speaker tonight. Okay, Nicole.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our last virtual adventure series. And this is co-sponsored by the Belfast Free Library. So we want to thank the library and Brenda for hosting this event tonight. My name is Nicole Luttrell, and I'm a rower, a coxswain, a board member with Come Boating, and also the owner of Dory Women Rowing. And many moons ago, I got my start rowing with Come Boating. And I want to invite all of you that are not members or need to renew your membership to become a member. You can do that really easily. I'm actually going to show you how. You can become a member, you can donate, or you can also volunteer with Come Boating. So I'm just going to share my screen and show you how to do that. So this is the Come Boating website, and to join or make a donation, go to About Us and join Come Boating. Voila, that's where you do it. And let me tell you, for such an amazing community and the opportunity to get out on the water in our beautiful pilot gigs, this is quite a deal. $25 a year for individuals and $45 for a family annually. So you don't have to be a member to row with us, but with this kind of deal, I'm encouraging you to do so, or to renew your membership, or to donate or volunteer. We have lots of opportunities for that. Our season begins towards the end of May, and our winter rowing season has been in full tilt. We had a couple of teams that went to the snow row a few weeks ago and really kicked some butt and had a great time. So again, inviting you to become a member or donate to Come Boating. And I want to thank you all again for coming tonight. And I'm hoping you're going to enjoy this presentation with the fabulous J.B. Turner. And I am turning this over now to Carol.
Okay.
And I'm going to unshare my screen.
Okay. Hi, I'm Carol Kuhn. Boating since the year 2011, his first year at the Front Street Shipyard. I have invoice number 10. It was for stepping my mast and tuning my rig. It was $330. As of last week, Front Street Shipyard is up to 376 invoices. So here's my number 10 invoice. As next year was the beginning of the Front Street Shipyard second year, 2012. With the help of others, including Willie Riddick, I was busy organizing the Belfast boat shop tours for Come Boating. Brenda will share the poster on the screen now. I don't know if she's doing it. Okay. And Willie Riddick made the poster, just like she did all the others for Come Boating, posters and flyers. The poster depicts a lovely woodblock print
Did we lose Carol, Brenda?
I think we did.
Okay,
Sorry.
we have Mickey here.
I don't know what happened. Her internet must have just popped off.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll take over. She sent me what she was gonna say.
Okay.
All right.
Gosh, that's too bad. I'm sorry, Carol.
No, I'm
Okay.
there. Are you
There she
here?
is.
Yeah, there she is.
I don't know where it went. Oh, well,
Okay, good.
all right. So you saw Willie's poster, yeah. The tour
Yes.
took place on April 14th, 2012. It included 3 tours of boat shops. We started at Glen Holland's boat shop on Mill Lane in East Belfast. We continued to Front Street Shipyard and then a nod to Todd French at French and Webb. From there, we finished up at the boathouse. We had refreshments and viewed the movie, Maine Built Boats, Art and Soul. Well, it was a $20 donation to benefit Come Boating, and I hope that we'd have 20 people to make it worth my while. By Wednesday of that week, we had 30 people sign up, then 40. By Friday, 75 people had signed up, and I thought we were in trouble. I called and left a message for JB, or maybe it was an email. We certainly didn't have text then. I told him we had something like 75 people signed up. He said something like, less is best, but I'll go for it. So next day, JB split the group and he had his co-owner, Taylor Allen, help him with the tours. We raised $1,400. It was a huge success for Come Boating. I know Front Street Shipyard was a calling card. So JB has been a friend of Come Boating from his earliest days in Belfast. From letting us keep kids on his docks in the winter, to letting us know his people are willing to help if needed. And last Friday, a group of 7 showed up from the shipyard to help us flip Belfast off the trailer and launch her. What really put JB on this in the shipyard on the Mid-Coast map that first year in 2011 was when Hurricane Irene was barreling up the eastern seaboard, threatening landfall in late August 2011. I went down to the shipyard the day before she was due to hit, just to watch. The Front Street Shipyard crew was working in sync, as if they had done this before. The place was hopping. The launch was picking up boats out of the water, and the crew was securing them to dollies and trailers. They hauled 25 to 30 boats in the water, big and small. Some as long as 90 feet, and others as small as 25 feet. It didn't matter if they put you in the water that season. If you wanted out before the storm, they got you out. I think that really sealed things for JB. We're so proud to say that Belfast has a working waterfront. JB provides jobs for many people in Belfast. Approximately 100 people are currently employed at Front Street Shipyard. And sometimes during the summer, there's more. And we're grateful for that. So let's welcome JB. I can't imagine him now saying less is best, but I can imagine him saying, I'll go for it. Welcome, JB.
That's a good week.
I don't know. All right. All right, welcome. Thanks everybody and thanks Carol for the nice introduction. It still actually amazes me that and honors me that people are interested in the shipyard after 11 and a half years of going at it day after day and building what we've built. And we try and keep everything fresh on the waterfront, keep the boats changing around, and people love to stop and talk to us along the walkway and find out what we're doing and what's going on at a particular time. And it's always changing, which makes it interesting for everybody in town, and it keeps it interesting for everybody at the yard actually too. So I'll take you through a few slides that we put together in a couple of videos of how we started the yard and what our goals were when we started out and where we are today and some of the fun projects we've had along the way. So as we all know, we started in 2011. We bought the land on January 13th, I believe, and had to close on it then. And we had a certain amount of time, we had to take the old sardine cannery down. That was one of the agreements with the city when we closed on the land. And we had to take it down within 60 days, which was not very difficult because it was not very well built. So really just a couple of taps with a excavator and down she went. And then we started clearing that land. But I myself hadn't looked back at some of these pictures in 10 years. So it's fun to see how much really has changed over the last 11 years from where we were to where we are now. Again, another shot of the old cannery that was demolished and gave us the beginnings of what is currently building 1, even though that was one of the last buildings we built because we don't do anything in order. We kind of made up the numbers as we go along and none of them really make much sense. but that's what we do. There's a reason why the name of our actual corporation is called the Dubbas, because it's officially stands for Down Under the Belfast Bridge Association, but we all know what a Dubba in Maine is. So that's just what we are, a bunch of Dubbas. So we quickly set to work after closing on the land, and we began our series of meetings with the city council, which was fantastic to work with. Joe Slocum, Thomas Kittredge, and Wayne Marshall were always involved in everything we were doing. And we had open dialogue back and forth on what was happening at the yard and what we requested to have happen quickly from the city of Belfast. And what they always were able to make happen was just really mind-blowing when you look back at it, even a couple of months after looking back at it. It was what we accomplished and what everybody's positive attitude was able to do was overwhelming at times because it was and amazing because everybody came together. It was sort of what I like to refer to as the perfect storm, with the city wanting something, the private side wanting something, and everybody working together to make it all happen. So it was fantastic. And here's part of the group, and actually most of the group. So the first meeting, the first unofficial meeting of Front Street Shipyard actually was at Applebee's in Augusta, where we started to actually form the idea with Steve White and myself having lunch there after a main built boats meeting. And then we quickly the next day got Taylor involved and then brought Ken along, Ken Priest from Kenway in. So, and then we added on later Lucia Mishu and Jack Reddig to round out the initial 6, which we're now at 5, but that story will go along as we go along. But this is the basic core group. Basically, Taylor, Allen, and Steve White own Brooklyn Boatyard and Rockport Marine, respectively, and they both wanted to have a larger facility. I was looking to get back into the boat building side of things, so it all came together. And at the time, I was actually working for Ken Priest, so we all got together and started formulating a plan on how we could actually purchase the land, and eventually we did, and quickly growing the yard to where we are today. So we always felt that Front Street Shipyard, in every yard that I've ever operated, has always been a full service yard. I mean, totally vertically integrated, meaning that we do everything in-house or as much as we possibly can in-house. I think that's important. It's important for the customers because it helps us control the budget and the quality of what goes into every project and in the time. So often some subcontractors will come and go as they please and as their schedule. And so we try very hard not to let that happen. So we have all the services in-house, from paint to carpentry to yard services, metal fabrication, rigging, composite work, the whole gamut of what goes into working with the boat: electrical, mechanical, hydraulics, plumbing, and it's a very integrated system, if you will, but it all works really well, and especially if everybody works together. And we've done pretty well over the last 12 years to work together very well. This is back to the beginning when we actually had to build our own floats. So all the floats you see out in the harbor we built in-house, and all of the walkway, that the wooden portion of the walkway we built in coordination with the city. We agreed with the city that we didn't want the walkway going in front of building 1. We wanted to get people out on the water And we also needed ourselves to get out of the water to get to deeper water where our floats are, where the boats are kept during the summer. So that process began with starting with floats and then building docks and on and on. So we're gonna have this is our very first video that Billy Black, who's a friend and a famous marine photographer, did for us.
July 20th, Front Street Shipyard. Here we go. And we just celebrated our 6-month anniversary of actually owning the property. So we've, every now and then you have to look back and say, wow, we've really actually come a long way in 6 months, from a sardine cannery to now a working shipyard. As we continue to build out that yard, the customers have been great working with us and understanding that a lot of construction is going on, but we're making major progress. Buildings are starting to go up, new construction's happening, new foundations are underway, docks are being finished off. So it's really coming together. We had our official grand opening July 2nd for the open house. We're invited a good portion of Belfast down to have hamburgers and hot dogs and sodas, and a lot of kids were able to run the travel lift, and a lot of older kids were able to run the travel lift, and everybody had fun, and it was a beautiful day, and everybody was in town and happy to be here. We probably had 400 or 500 people.
This is another dimension of the working waterfront. We'll build beautiful 20-foot boats. We'll build beautiful 140-foot boats, but we'll also service boats. So the design creativity is here. The joinery craftsmanship is here. The electronic support, the yacht designers are here. So you see all these pieces coming together, and they're all going to help each other, which is going to be great.
It's very, very exciting. We are bringing in a lot of the great talent most of the great talent that worked together previously at another location for a number of years. We've assembled a terrific team of managers and workmen under JB's leadership, and that's all being re-implemented here at Front Street. Everybody in the city has been doing extra time, extra meetings of their own time to be able to sit down with us and help us through the process as fast as possible so we can get up and running.
So that video, actually, I haven't watched all of it since probably it came out. So that was fun to see. And then our first year, really what got us going, again, the city working with us. We got off the ground in July. We started hauling boats with the running of our what we now call the small travel lift, which was the biggest travel lift in Maine. Now it's not. Because it's been predeceased by existing travel. Anyways, we were really fortunate and to have literally our original dock house, or our dock house right now, was our main office. And I'm in the office one day, and in walks this fellow that I'd never met before, wearing shorts and a shirt, and said, how would you guys like to do a refit on a 106-foot burger? And I said, oh yeah, that'd be great. Let's do it. So he said, well, where would you do it? And I said, oh, walk outside with me. And we kind of framed my hand. It's a picture of building over there. And if you guys want to come, we'll put it up and we'll do your refit for you. And it actually, amazingly, all came together from literally July of 2011 to December of 2011. We decided to move forward with our first big building, Building 5, which was on our 3-year plan. So it turned into our 6-month plan. And lo and behold, Stoneface showed up in November. I had flown down to see it previously and thought there was no possible way this boat is going to make it to Maine because of the wiring was a disaster. The mechanical systems were a disaster. It was fairly hopeless, I thought. But while I was down on looking at the boat, I actually called up one of our paint guys, Lloyd Bryant, and I said he was working on his own company right then. So I told him on the phone that day when I was sitting on Stoneface in New Jersey, said, "You're fired from your own company and you're going to come work for us and you're going to run our paint shop." And he said, "Okay." So then we started to form our own paint crew from that day forward. But Stoneface was a huge project for us. We actually moved the boat in. As you can see, the building wasn't even complete. We were tearing the boat apart. We were building a building and tearing a boat apart at the same time, which was an interesting concept. But the boat became one of our biggest refits really ever that we did. We completely rewired the boat, literally took every piece of wiring out and put new wiring in, rebuilt the engine room right down to the hull shell and back out, rebuilt all the forward cabins all the way through the boat. So new engines, generators, everything. A year later, she came out of the shed and launched her, and she was a total success all the way through. The owner was so very pleased with her that he brought another boat back to us, which you'll see in our future. But that's really one of the best compliments that any guy in a yard can get, is that when an owner returns with either the same boat or a different boat to do another project, that it really shows how much they trust in the yard and how much the yard has put forward to provide a really good experience for them to make them want to come back. And these boats are from Florida, from all over the world, and they come to Maine to get the work done. And then we don't slow down. So in 2013, again, I think this was actually planned year number 6 when we were actually in number 2. We decided to go ahead and move on and get the bigger travel lift going. We had hauled several boats with the small travel lift and almost broken it because the bolts that hold the big crossbeam together were pretty strained by some of the lifts that we were trying to accomplish, and almost got one boat stuck on land because we couldn't lift it back up to put it back in the water without some use of some airbags. So we said, okay, well, we're not going to take this roll of the dice anymore. We're just going to go for the big lift. And we contacted a company in Italy that we had seen build a new travel lift down in Florida. At the time was one of the biggest in the world. It was a 900-ton machine. And talked with them, and they basically said, anything you want, we can do, and they did. We signed an agreement with them very quickly, and within months, we had the machine arriving in 16 containers. They sent one person from Italy, and our whole crew worked together to actually build the machine physically in the yard and put it all together. So that was a big step forward for us, being able to have one of the largest lifts on the East Coast and the largest lift north of Newport, Rhode Island. And we've been honored by several different dignitaries over the years. We had Susan Collins to the yard several times, and she came to meet the group and say a few words for us at some of the different group meetings we've had with the yard people. So it's always nice to have people come from away to give thanks for what we're doing and trying to keep the waterfront going and keeping a lot of people employed along the way. So we're going to have a video here as our next slide, talking about the expanding of our workforce. Maybe not. Maybe not.
I've been in Belfast many times over the last 12 years, and each time it seems like there's more growth, greater restaurants, lots to do, but certainly your shipyard is making a huge difference to this area. It's an asset not only to Belfast, but to the entire Waldo County region. And an employer who has hired 113 people to work here, nearly $20 million investment. That is great news for this city. I'm not surprised because we're really tapping into what I call the Maine mystique, and that is the ability of Mainers to apply superior craftsmanship, ingenuity, and skills, and a sense of pride in their work to whatever we undertake. And I certainly saw that here as I looked at the sailing vessels and yachts that you're refurbishing. It is truly impressive. I just want to tell you how extraordinarily impressed I am with your skill, your professionalism, and your dedication. It really is why Maine's workforce is second to none. And I know you're competing with shipyards not only all over the United States, but literally all over the world. And I'm sure that the Maine mystique is always going to prevail.
So again, not slowing down, we decided we would try to do a little more expansion. So we wanted to start sort of a little bit different type of business. And we did that up in Bucksport. We leased a facility up there back then and today, where we build parts for other people, meaning that we take a mold from CW, SW Boatworks, and we'll build a Calvin Beale 42 hull and a Calvin Beale 42 deck, put it together and ship it off to various finishers all over the state of Maine. So we have a constant crew up there of 6 to 8 people that are building hulls and decks of varying designs and shipping them all over the state for other people to finish off. And that keeps them busy, but it also keeps us a little bit diversified. So we have sort of a production side to us that we don't normally have down in Belfast Yard. But it also helps us with some of the load that we have from our composite side. We can finish some boats up in Bucksport and other parts and pieces, like you see here, which is the ProGlide 26. We just finished off hull number 12 of. So they can get more work spread out all over Maine, really. It's not just about keeping people in Belfast busy, but we ship boats literally all over the coast for various companies to finish off. So it keeps everybody going. And then we also kept our focus back in Belfast, and we said, okay, now we have a 440-ton travel lift. We don't have any building we can drive it into, which is, it's kind of a problem. So instead of just having them outside all the time, we decided to move forward with talking with the city about purchasing the parking lot, which was next to Building 5, and building what we now call Building 6. And Building 6 gave us the ability not only to drive 2 large boats in and set them down, but also save the customers money, because the process we used prior to that basically meant a combination of a large trailer and our travel lift, and the cost of doing that was in the $30,000 to $40,000 range for each vessel. So that became cost prohibitive for some of the boats. So we decided to move forward with Building 6 and make a huge haul. And not only do we have the 2 boats that can go in there, but we also jam pack it full of boats. Right now, we probably have 13 or 14 boats in it of 50 to 60 feet. So it can hold a lot of boats and hold a lot of people and hold a lot of work, which is really what it's all about. So we're going to show you a video that shows it's a drone flying starting in Building 5, flying across Building 5 and into Building 6 and looking around inside Building 6. So then, now that building 6 was completed, we applied for, actually a few years ago, a grant. It's called the Small Shipyard Grant. And we have been talking with a company in Norway that builds carbon fiber ferries. And one of my lead design guy, Craig Picard, and Craig and I have been together for 22 years working together at various yards. And he and I flew over to Norway to meet with a Norwegian company called Brother & O. And they built these carbon fiber fast ferries for the last 20 years. And we felt that certainly the Americans would want to get involved in that because it saves money, it saves the environment because they're running less fuel, and they can run all electric because the boats are so much lighter. Lots of different reasons for getting involved in the carbon fiber passenger ferry business. One of the biggest pieces of equipment they had that we felt we needed to do that to get involved in the process was a large water jet cutting machine. So we applied for a grant, and we won the grant on our second try. And that allowed us to move forward with purchasing what we know is definitely the largest water jet cutting machine on the East Coast. We aren't sure if it's the biggest in the US, but it's certainly one of the biggest in the US. The actual cutting size table is about 40 feet by 14 feet. The overall machine is about 52 feet by 16 feet, and it holds 15,000 gallons of water. And it has a pump on it that can put out 90,000 PSI mixed in with an aggregate called garnet. And then it can cut virtually any material except for diamond and tempered glass. This particular machine we have also has a 5-axis capability, so it can cut bevels and angles and complex shapes. We have a lathe attachment also, so we can cut pipe. We tried to get it to do everything we could possibly ever imagine it doing, so that we could be able to do not only the carbon fiber ferries, but also change a little bit of how we do the business and add what we call now a manufacturing side. So again, little bit of diversification so that we can reach out to other businesses throughout Maine, and we do today. We're working with architects, we're working with large companies all over Maine, and cutting out pieces and parts for them for various either art projects, architectural projects. We're cutting out spoons for people. It's unbelievable all the variety of things we get to do with the machine. It's quite fun and always challenging. So that's been a great asset for us. We have a great team, and we're actually trying to build that out, the manufacturing side, a little bit more. We just purchased that past week another large welding machine so that when we cut something, we can weld it together and then finish it off and be able to give the customer the full finished product, which we hadn't been able to do before because our metal fabricating shop was always buried with work. So we're trying to expand the manufacturing side. So this is a video we're going to show you of the machine operating just recently. And it's quite interesting. And we also have a vacuum lift that goes along with it. So then we'll go, I want to take a little bit, of course, of what we do most of, which is refit work on the boats. We've already got a large group of boats lined up to come up this summer and fall. In fact, it's kind of humbling to be able to say that we can almost choose now which boats we want to take. Not all the time, but of the bigger boats, there are less and less choices as the world sort of evolves. And we become a major stopping point for many of them. And again, we have new boats arriving and we have return customers coming, which is always very gratifying for not only myself, but all the whole crew to have someone come back and want you to do more work on the boat, which is really what all of our winter storage customers do all the time. But when the big boats make their way from the Mediterranean or the Pacific and gone around the world and they come back and want you to do the refit after they've made their huge trip, it's also very special. So this is a refit we did on a boat called Too Elusive, which many of you know, it lives in Camden. It's an 80-foot composite sailboat built in South Africa. And we did a big refit on his aft cabin, main salon area a few years ago. And actually, it became so big that we ended up asking some of our friends down at Rockport Marine to come up and give us a hand. And that's sort of the collaboration that we do a lot between Rockport Marine and Brooklyn Boatyard and ourselves, is to help each other out with projects. And it goes both ways. Sometimes if we're overwhelmed with work, we'll ask them for help. And if they're overwhelmed with work, they'll ask us for help. And it works out quite well that way. We've built decks and big parts of boats, and we've built small little widgets for each other. And it's a good collaboration to make it work. People often get confused thinking that Rockport Marine or Brooklyn Boatyard owns Front Street Shipyard, and that's not true. So we try to keep that rumor as squashed as we can. It's actually just the individuals. But it does mean that, but the yards do work well together. So that helps a lot. So Too Elusive was a good refit. And you'll see her off sailing. Well, she's actually in the yard right now for sale if anybody wants to purchase her. But Mr. Watson had many good years aboard. And this is some of the details that we did in the main salon. And then we move into one of our bigger projects. Was a boat that was actually used to live over in near Surrey, and just between Brooklyn and Surrey. And it had a mooring out there, and it was sold to a couple that this is actually their first boat. We hauled it for a survey, and that was pretty much it. It stayed out of the water for another almost year while we gave it a complete refit. They moved forward with the purchase. We moved forward with the work. It involved, again, like Stoneface, almost every department was completely involved with the refit, from joinery work, moving cabins around, to repaint the whole exterior of the boat, to new joinery work and dinettes and interiors. And the owner was involved heavily because, again, it was their first boat. And she picked out things like that chandelier, which we still don't really know what it is, but that's fine. We put on a whole jacuzzi in the aft deck, which created more structural needs for the boat, because that's a lot of weight up very high. New teak decks around. I mean, the list went on and on. New bars throughout the boat. It was a great project. Good owners. They enjoyed the boat. I think Nicole and I actually were one of the last people to have dinner aboard while it was in Bucks Harbor a couple years ago, and then they decided to sell the boat. They wanted to get something bigger. But they certainly enjoyed the boat while it was theirs. And I believe the new name of the boat is Calypso now. And we have a video of her coming out after the refit.
I think we've finally reached a real milestone in this project. Today is the day we're going to put the boat back in the water and start working on a lot of the mechanical commissioning systems that we've installed over the past 9 months. All the employees have put so much into this project. We just can't wait until we get things in the water so we can finish this project up.
Thank you very much for all of the unbelievable work you've done. And if you remember what this looked like when we came in the yard, and you have a look at it today, it's something that every one of you should be incredibly proud of. And we couldn't be happier. I do want you to know how much we really appreciate all the fantastic craftsmanship up here. It is second to none, and we're very, very appreciative. So thank you all very much. Give it a crack. Thank you, mate. All right.
I sort of can't believe that she's actually where she is. It's awfully exciting. It's really great to see how everyone came out to see her launch. Just to see her out of the shed and in the sunlight, and the sun came out for us.
So along the way, throughout the years, we worked on both power and sail, obviously. And one of my favorite projects was the Axia project, because it not only was it a big project, but it was a two-part project. They originally came to us with making this 126-foot Palmer Johnson aluminum ketch. They had the desire to win what's called the bucket race, which is a race of larger yachts that held down in St. Bart's every year. And to do that, he needed to change the keel and the rudder. So we were picked to do just that. We cut off the old keel and the old rudder, and we put on a new keel extension, and then a new keel and a new rudder system, which actually got involved in the whole steering system. And it was a major project. Our guys, those two guys in the picture, worked almost 24 hours a day on the project. It was amazing how many hours they put in. Both Scott and Walt, who are both working with us still at the yard. And they did a phenomenal job of not only doing all the welds, but then the owner, of course, hired a weld expert to come up and test everything, who was actually a nuclear submarine weld testing guy. And he became a friend and passed all of our welds with flying colors, and really a testament to how everybody worked together to get it done in time to get south for the race. And then he came back a year later for a major engine room overhaul, much like we had done on Stoneface, but just in two parts instead of one. So we focused this particular refit. The second one was on basically the whole engine room, taking out engines and generators, replacing everything, and making sure all the systems were ready to go for many more years to come. So it was a fun project, a good group of people on the crew side. Our crew was great. They worked really hard and worked well together. So it was one of those, another really good combinations that come together every now and then, and just a fantastic refit. And very proud of the way she handles. And I don't know that she actually has won the bucket yet, but I know she's gotten second. She won her class, but she hasn't won the actual bucket, which is, I think she got second place. So maybe this year. And then a lot of people saw one of our bigger boats that we've ever had in the place, which was a Solari, built originally by Hodgson Yachts as Scheherazade. She's a 155-foot catch, and she barely fit in the building. We actually had to take the ventilation and section of ventilation out of the building to be able to get her in. And we did a full paint job on her and worked on a lot of hydraulics and system side. That's the thing about these boats, is the systems integration is just unbelievable and getting more and more difficult and complicated every day with all new electronics integrating with all parts of the boat. So it makes it even more challenging to work on the boats these days because everything's so integrated, hopefully well integrated. There's a picture of a Solaris after her launch and getting ready to head south down to Antigua, where I did get to go aboard and meet the owner and say hello, at least for a minute. And then we had another great refit in the return of John Riley, the owner of Stoneface, came back to us with his father's boat, Sinbad. His father had passed away actually during the refit of Stoneface, and he continued that refit on, and then he had his dad's boat, and his father had sort of messed around with the boat and tried all sorts of different things. He was really kind of liked to explore new ideas with the boat itself, and he would add on appendages and see what it would do, and he would fix things and see what would happen. And John was told by several different very famous marine surveyors to just forget it, just abandon it, walk away, don't spend any money on the boat, it's not worth it. But John said, it's my dad's boat, I can't do that, I've got to make her like she should be. So we didn't really do a ton of work on the inside, but we did a lot of hull plating, we did a lot of work in the engine room, which was much like Stoneface, a disaster, and renewed that almost completely other than the main engines. Complete paint jobs, new wiring system, a lot of new wiring systems. The boat was actually supposed to go back in the water in the fall, and the surveyors came back on board and said, you can't go back in the water with that electrical system. You need a whole new electric panel before you're ever going to get insurance passed. So it didn't go back in the water in the fall, it went back in the spring. He had a whole new electrical panel made and all new rewired the electrical panel. So that project, but in the end of the day, everybody was really happy. Everyone got along great. The owner was thrilled. It was just what he wanted. He didn't want it too fancy, but he wanted really functional, and the boat is to this day very, very functional. Many of you also walked down the harbor walk, saw Corwith Kramer come in. She's a seamaster boat, and they do training and teaching out of Cape Cod. They have a boat that's on the East Coast, which is the Corwith Kramer, or the Atlantic Ocean, and they have a Pacific Ocean boat. I forget the name of that one. But anyways, it's a great program. A lot of kids are involved in it, and they had a huge crew on board. They kept all of their crew busy, and they kept our crew busy during the refit with various parts and pieces. They had a picnic lunch every day in front of the boat to gather their troops together to keep everybody on task with what they had to do for the day and to check in with them. And then we had our projects that we were carrying out, a lot of hull plating going on, a lot of decking going on, a lot of steel work all over the place. We had, I think, 30 different steel workers on the boat at one point from our side. There was a lot of projects that kept expanding and expanding and expanding, as so often they do. But it was a great project. It was finished. Everybody was happy. The rigs went back in, and she's off sailing around the world again. Here's a video of her as during the process.
September 21st, 2017, Front Street Shipyard. Getting ready to launch the Corwith Kramer tomorrow. So the 134 feet overall, It's about 100 feet on deck.
SEA is Sea Education Association, Sea Semester. We run basically college abroad programs during the academic school year on this vessel and her sister ship, the Robert C. Siemens, who's based in the Pacific. They spend time learning about the ocean, learning about the islands they go to, learning how to sail the vessel and take on leadership roles and responsibility. We were looking for a yard that would allow our crew to work alongside their crew, and there's very few in the area. And I knew from talking with folks that Front Street would allow us to have our crew here as well. And it just all seemed to come together, so it worked out.
They sent a crew of 20 to 25 people all through the summer, and it's been a great crew to work with all the way through. There's been no issues at all. It's been a good refit. We've had her in all summer long. We've done a lot of fabrication work.
We did something major in every compartment on board, between rebuilding the whole galley, moving systems from one watertight space to another, main engine rebuild, transmission rebuild, our windlass was off, our hydro winch was off.
We replaced the hull plating. We replaced a lot of the deck parts, generators replaced.
The rig was completely taken off and broken down, and all these pieces inspected and put back together.
This is, of course, Kramer's 30th year. We have a 30-year American Bureau of Shipping hull inspection, and that's just been completed. And so we've had our entire hull surveyed for the thickness of the steel.
So we've been working with the Coast Guard and the ABS inspectors while we've been doing all the plating work to inspect our welds, and the repairs include a lot of repairs on the masts, including new rungs, new tangs. After 30 years of service, things just wear out. So it's time to upgrade and get back into shape again.
We're putting our main mist in. We put our fore mist in yesterday, so we're getting both masts in so we can go in the water on Friday. We hope to get a few days sea trials in.
So we've talked a lot about the refit side of things. We also do new construction, and not everybody knows that we do new construction, and we've not done a ton of it, but we're gaining momentum in that regard. I've been building boats for a bunch of years, and a lot of the guys that came with me from other yards had been as well. So we wanted to do some boat building. About a year and a half ago, we were approached by folks from Long Island to ask us to build a custom 41-footer that the Hunt design. Hunt is a fairly famous hull designer, and we, meaning many of the guys at the yard and myself, had worked with Hunt many times over the years, so we're familiar with each other. It's been a great build. She'll be launched this summer. She's right now, we have the hull and all the systems going in. The deck is about to go on. It's being faired right now. So in about 3 weeks, it'll start to look like a real boat, and all together. But it's a fun process building a boat from scratch. We build a mold, and then we build the hull, and then we build another mold, and we build the deck, and we build another mold, and we build the hardtop. We just build molds and parts and molds and parts. And the unfortunate thing is, because we're building one-off molds, we don't usually save them because we don't have the space in the yard. But it's fun, and also in the other regard to that is they're unique. They're one of a kind, and this boat will be one of a kind. It will not be repeated by anyone ever again. So that's unusual and fun. And there's some of the pictures of us as we're starting to put the galley together down below, and head systems and the various systems going into it. It's going to be a great running boat. It has a pod drive system, which is from Volvo, and a very efficient drive system. So it should get up and go and be able to handle seaway without any issues. Oh, yeah. So now we're talking more about the future, where we are. And these are just some pictures of boats that are currently planned to come this summer. Abide is in your upper left-hand corner facing the screen. That's a 136-footer that's due in for a major refit. She's going to be arriving to the shipyard at the end of April. You'll see her alongside for a couple weeks, and then we'll haul her and bring her inside. And we have new teak decks going on and full paint job on the exterior of the boat, painting the masts. We have riggers from all over the world coming in to do new rigging. We're going to be building new cabinetry down below, and it's another one of those really extensive refits that we'll have about 9 months to work with and hopefully get a lot accomplished. Other boats are coming back. We always have the Nordhaven group. You'll see many of those same trawler-like large power boats that come in, and we have a group of them that come in every year now. We've become a normal stopping point on the Nordhaven group tour, if you will, up and down the East Coast. And they're a great group of people, and we welcome them back every year, and they always bring along a couple extras. So we've got probably 10 or 15 of them by now that come up at various points throughout the summer. And then the sailing boat you see there, Symmetry, is a 96-foot custom boat built in New Zealand that we did two different refits on in the past, and they're talking about coming back to us again this fall for another refit. So that's real, again, nice to have repeat customers that come back and wave the flag. And even though they actually just canceled their trip to the Med and decided to come to Maine. That's great. And of course, we're hiring because we have boats to build and we have boats to refit, and we need to grow our crew again. So I'm sure everybody's seen the signs out on the walkways, and we actually had a lot of people come in, which has been fantastic. We've probably hired 10 to 15 people in the last 3 weeks. So we're still growing, we're still looking, we're still thinking about new things all the time. Whether it's new machinery or new spaces to work in. We're always trying to keep our eye on the future, and also be reminded of our past, which you guys tonight helped me to do by looking at the old pictures of the old sardine cannery. All right, that's my chat. Does anybody have, turn it back over to see if we have any questions for anybody?
Yes, thank you so much, JB. That was wonderful. Exciting to see all that you're working on. So there's one question that came in the chat early on, and it's not really about the boats, it's about on the land. Can you tell us about your seawater mitigation valves at the bottom of the building? Since this is a known flood area, it's not a question of if, but when floods come, how have you prepared for that when you built the buildings?
So the buildings, you'll see those stainless steel louver vents that are on the side of building 5 and 6 and 4. 4A, I believe. And those are all part of the original design process. Actually, as it turns out, Belfast actually lowered the flood zone. So when we built building 5, the flood zone was 7 feet higher than it is today. So when we built the building, we had to put in those floodgates, which are opening. If we ever get flooded with water, they open up to let the water out so the building doesn't get damaged. In current status, they wouldn't be needed really, but they were at the time, so we put them in.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So we have another question. Tell us about the red floating cabin.
Sure. So Steve White, who I mentioned earlier, one of my partners, who owns Brooklyn Boatyard, built that, his houseboat. Oh, I don't know, was it 8 years ago? Basically, he decided that he wanted a place in Belfast to stay. He lives in Brooklyn, and Brooklyn is a very small town, and he needed a place to get out and be able to go to a city, which is Belfast, for one reason. The second reason was we were going to so many meetings with the city council that the drive back and forth to Brooklyn for an hour each way was killing him. So he decided to make his own house here. And he built it over in Brooklyn Boatyard. He launched it over there, and he towed it across from Brooklyn at 2.3 knots, because at 2.4 knots, it would start to go down. And he tied it up where it's tied up today, and he's hooked up to city water and sewer, and has radiant floor heat and a fireplace and granite countertops, and it's a pretty nice boat.
All right, cool. Someone once told me it was an Airbnb, but I guess I'm wrong.
It's not. He actually rented it for a couple times and he decided to take it off the market. It's not for rent anymore at all.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, next question. What about that little deck by the footbridge? I don't know what that means.
Well, there is a little deck there. There's a
Oh,
pier
yeah.
that goes out, and where the sardine cannery boats would tie up originally, that we kept as part of our docking system. And there's a little piece that's next to it, and we've never really done anything with it. I've kind of forgotten about it, but I'm not sure even who owns it, whether it's us or the city at this point, because when we built the yard, we had 39 exchanges of land back and forth, little pieces of a corner of a building traded for a little piece of the rail trail. And where all that paperwork is, you have to ask the city planner at this point.
Okay, thanks. Another question, news about ferry boat construction contracts, question mark?
Yep, well, we're still trying. We actually had a group in last week from Europe, because as I was sort of alluding to in my very sarcastic way, the United States of America is pretty much the only country in the world that doesn't use carbon fiber fast ferries because of their fuel efficiency. And we've always been hoping that someone in the United States of America would catch on to the fact that it's more fuel efficient, because we build planes and we build trains and we build cars and we build bicycles and every mode of transportation except fast ferries out of carbon fiber. So someday we will, and we're going to hang in there. In the meantime, we're not only bidding on ferry routes, but we're also talking with the windsurf people, because the growing wind service industry in Maine, for the offshore wind, they need boats to service them, and those are very unique boats. And Brother and O is also building boats for that market as well. So we had a group come over from Norway or from Sweden, I think, last week, and we met with them, walked them through the yard and showed them everything we're doing so they could get up to speed. And we had a conference call with Norway at the same time, even though it was 10 o'clock at night in Norway. They stayed up for us and gave us talk about there and how we created this partnership. So it's ongoing. We don't have a boat to build yet, but we seem to be getting slowly closer, much slower than we ever imagined.
Okay, thank you. I'll do my best with this question. What is the typical marine niche that Front Street Shipyard competes well for new business? I don't understand the question.
Well, I think it's what we do is we do everything in-house. We don't use a lot of subcontractors. We are a one-stop shop. So that's unique in the big boat world up and down at least on the East Coast. Most of the bigger yards use subcontractors, and you're given a project manager and you find your subcontractors within the yard and you pick them out and they work on your boat and you give a percentage to the yard. That's completely different how we do it. We do everything in-house, and that way we can control the budget, the quality, and the process for the customer. And we actually provide the customer with our own project manager from our side at no charge to help organize the project, which is also unusual. Most every other large yard in the US, you get charged for the project manager, you get charged for the blocking, you get charged for the blocks, you get charged for the stands, you get charged for the electricity, you get charged for the space every day you're on it. We don't charge for any of that. We only charge for the labor for the work that we're doing.
Okay, great, thank you. So we have somebody that raised their hand early on, and I'm going to ask him to unmute and ask his question. Neil, did you want to ask your question? Is that why you raised your hand? I'm not sure he knows what he's doing. I don't think so. Okay, that must have been a mistake. Does anybody else have another question? Oh, here comes another one. Can you tell us anything about any yachts owned by Russian or American oligarchs?
No.
No names, of course.
No, we don't. To my knowledge, we don't have any Russian oligarchs hanging out in Belfast right now, or ever.
Okay, and then there's another question. A second part of that is also any electric propulsion craft, any electric boats?
We've actually been on a few different electric propulsion crafts. We're actually one of the leaders of installations of lithium-ion battery systems in Maine and in New England. We do quite a number of those, along with solar arrays and all that. We do have one electric powered yacht at the yard right now. It's a small catamaran sailboat that we've had to upgrade from the original build so it would have the speed that the owner desired and the longevity for the runner desired, but it's definitely coming along. The problem with to some degree, some of the electric problem is that you have to run generators to charge the batteries. And so you're trading one diesel source for another, and it's, where's the trade-off in that? There is an all-electric, fully electric boat that Brother Renault built, 400 passenger, that takes you down to the fjords in Norway. And that's able to run 17 knots for 20 minutes, no, 40 minutes round trip down the fjord and back. That's 400 people it's carrying. So they've really made huge strides in Norway.
Yeah, I actually have heard that too. Okay, here's a question. What was your background before Front Street Shipyard?
Well, always in boatyards. I grew up in Mystic, Connecticut, working in a boatyard at Stonington after I graduated college, which I went to for management. And then I moved to Maine and worked at Wayfarer Marine in Camden for 4.5 years as a service manager, and then went over to Lyman Morse, who I had never even met Cabot Lyman, called me up one night and asked me if I wanted to build boats. I said, well, it's got to be better than fixing them every day. So I learned that trade and worked at Lyman Morse for 12 years. And then Cabot and I parted ways, and I got together with Steve and Taylor and Ken and started Front Street Shipyard.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Just
5
like
minutes.
that. Okay, here's a question. Did you finish the antique ship that was in the yard in September?
The antique ship.
Is that the one under the plastic?
Oh, Kangarda. So Kangarda is owned by the estate of Bob McNeil, who lived on Islesboro. Bob passed away in July. So we had done a bunch of work on it in spring. She was inside. We did some paint work on one side of the boat, got the bottom ready, did a lot of electrical systems work because it had a sinking problem the year before, which is always a problem on a boat. So we've done a bunch of work on it. And then unfortunately, the owner passed away, and she's all out front for sale through the estate. It's built in 1901. It's the last privately owned steam powered vessel in the United States. She's 126 feet long, steel hull.
Cool. Well, I don't have another question in the chat. Does anybody have one last pressing question they would like to ask? Come on, I know you have a question. I have a question. Tell us about the solar panels out on Waldo Ave.
Yeah. Jackie, I get to bring some of my sarcasm in on this one too. It's fun.
Good.
We, I don't know, Heather from Revision Energy called probably a year and a half ago and talked to me about putting a solar farm out. And I had always thought we'd be able to put solar panels up on the roofs of our two big buildings, and that would make a lot of sense. But it turns out that the substation in Belfast is completely full, so they can't take any more electricity. So they said, well, but out in on Waldo County Road, there is space at 137. So we decided to take all of our outside storage out there because it really wasn't being utilized well. We have a lot of inside storage that's in high demand out there, but we don't have much outside storage that's being utilized well. And just cleared it all out, and we put up all those solar panels that are out there now. I think there's 748 panels. 748.
96.
I know it's more than that. 748 kilowatts, I think. Yeah. It's less than a megawatt. But basically what it will do is provide 40 to 45% of our power down at the yard, which is fantastic, especially the last 2 months if any of your electric bills look like mine. The crazy part is, so we get the whole thing built and it's ready to go about 2 weeks ago. And then CMP, Revision Energy calls up CMP and says, well, we're ready to turn everything on. And they go, oh, you have to have a land phone line connected to it. We're like, what? It has to be a landline to monitor the CMP system instead of just having a Wi-Fi system, which is the same thing sitting right next to it. That all of our little solar credits, it's a Wi-Fi transmitter. It's constantly going. But right next to that is the old telephone box the CMP's put in, we're still waiting for that to be hooked up. So it'll come online probably within the next week and a half, as soon as Father Time gets out and winds up his clock and makes the landline work again, which I don't know anybody who has a landline anymore.
That's great. So Nathaniel Warren, you have your hand raised. Did you want to unmute and ask a question? That's usually what people do when they raise their hand. Okay, maybe not. Let's see.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, sorry. Not so much a question. I just wanted to throw in a comment. I'm a new resident in Belfast, and just watching and learning about the history of Front Street, it's been terribly exciting. It's really very impressive, the amount of work that they do, the scope and the scale of, the services they provide. The ambition and the ability is really pretty impressive. So I think it's a great thing for Belfast, and I really appreciate the fact that you guys took the opportunity tonight to share that with the community. I think that's really great. Really enjoyed it. I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I think, as I said in the beginning, it's always amazes me that people are really still very excited about the shipyard. I mean, I live it every day, so I don't get a chance to step back very often, but it's nice to have people still stop me on the walkway and say, gee, thanks for coming to town. And that's after 11 years. That's pretty cool. And I'm appreciative of that when people do that.
All right, I have one last question and then we'll wrap it up. You had a fair number of windjammer style boats come through. Can you comment on them?
Oh yeah, we've had windjammers, we've had schooners, we've had a variety of wooden boats. We're going to be hauling the Angelique again at the end of April. Again, a return customer that we do every couple of years for various surveys for the Coast Guard. Because we have a big lift, we can haul most of them. Some of them are so long and so old that the travel lift is really not the best way to haul a long wooden older vessel, because it can't be supported well enough. It really needs to be hauled on a railway. But for those like the Angelique, which is built of steel, we can easily take her in and take good care of her. And some of the more rebuilt, longer, we had some Fifes in that were fantastic. Just to have in the yard is amazing. 140-foot Fife. And the Bowden comes over every year for her maintenance, and their crew does the work on that. And actually, Maritime Academy has been fantastic. I mean, not only as a customer, but as just working back and forth with them through donation stuff. And we do a lot of work on their boats, and it's a great group to work with all the time. We're very appreciative of their keep returning to us every year for their work.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much for this presentation. I'm going to turn it back over to Nicole Luttrell from Boating to help wrap it up. Go ahead, Nicole.
Well, first I'm gonna, Mickey had a few words to say.
So JB, I'm really appreciate you including the Corwith Kramer, because in our family, it's a very important boat. Our daughter, we did a semester at sea out of Woods Hole on her, and then volunteered 2 years after that. And it was played a very significant part in her whole development. And
that's great.
And it was wonderful when we saw her coming in here and the whole her being in Belfast. So thanks for including that.
Absolutely, of course.
And on behalf of Boating, JB, I just want to thank you so much for being our presenter. And this was an absolutely fascinating presentation. I learned so much. It was great to see those old photos. I was in Belfast at that time, and I also very much want to acknowledge your community mindedness as well, and making room for boats that aren't yachts too. So,
Thank you for saying that.
So yes, thank you for gigs, for dories, other boats. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to everyone for coming to this presentation tonight. And we hope to see you out on the water. We hope to see you become members and renew your membership, join Boating, volunteer for Boating, go to comboating.org. So thanks again, everyone, for coming out tonight.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you, Brenda.
Thank you all.
Brenda.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Good night.
JB.